Good morning, everyone. Hello, hello. I hope you're well. If you can see us, do say hello. I'll keep an eye on the old followers and excuse me, I might sneeze. It's hay fever season. It's not good.
Yeah, I'm the
Constantly.
same.
Oh, God. Feeling a bit sorry for myself. It
Mm.
looks like I'm constantly crying. And then you've got fans blowing in your face. Ah, anyway, throwing us right in the thick of this lovely weather that I really enjoy. Um, good morning. Hello, everyone, to everyone who's watching. We're live on Facebook and YouTube. And today we're doing a live stream all about childcare. So, holiday clubs, babysitters, after school, before school. So, if you can see us, please do say hello. Let us know where you're watching from. Morning, Kirsty. I will give people a shout out as I see the comments coming in. For those who don't know, I'm Chrissa. I'm the founder of Sunshine Support. I'm happy finally to be joined by people because sometimes I'm up here just talking at this green light in front of me. I mean, last time I was very lucky to have Gabby with me. Today I've got two guests. It's like you're all falling over each other to just get onto a Facebook Live. I know how much you want to do it. So I've got two of my colleagues here who are also Sen parents, Jess and Kat. Morning, ladies.
No.
Morning.
You all right?
Good. It's strange being on this side of things rather than just watching the comments come in on YouTube.
Yeah. The Kat, you're normally managing that part, aren't you? The comments coming in. Oh, and Jess, you're normally organising me.
Well, I'm just sitting here sweating instead. I do have a fan, which is why I'm a bit blowy, but yeah, it's hot, isn't it?
It's just horrible. As we came live this morning, I said to Kat, "Can you hear the fans?" But it made me sound like a pretentious so and so because I made
Like
it
your
sound
fan,
like my fans.
your fan.
Oh, they're screaming outside. Um, um, Morning, Jessica, watching from Facebook. I love that. That's the first time anybody's ever said that, watching from Facebook. Love that. But if you want to let us know geographically where you're watching from, sometimes that shows as well that there's problem areas. But also, um, I think it's quite nice. I've seen people who have realized they're close to someone geographically in the comments, and then they're able to actually link up with them, which is quite helpful for this topic today. So for those watching, we're diving into a topic this morning that I think so many of us have felt so deeply. I think we really, really struggle with this, and that is the quest to find suitable childcare, whether it's after school, in the holidays, babysitters for our SEND children. And by all means, share your stories and any dilemmas that you have and any wins that you have as well, because sometimes people can come up with some real great ideas. So if you've got any ideas on this topic, do let us know. I'll say a quick few good mornings. Morning, Jess. So morning, Jess Tomsit. One of our amazing advocate consultants is watching. Morning, Julie. Morning, Isla from Solihull. Love that. So we've got plenty of people watching. If you're on YouTube, do say hello as well. We love our YouTube followers. So let's get cracking then. Let's have a look at these challenges that we're all facing in finding childcare during the school holidays, after school, babysitters. And the babysitters part, I think, is really, really useful because so many of us go without a life for ourselves. And we have all heard me say repeatedly, we have to put our oxygen mask on first. We have to be able to look after our own well-being. It's not selfish, it's not pretentious, it's not nonsense. It's really, really important that we look after ourselves. So that's why, and you know that I'm always talking about this, it's really important that we cover the babysitters as well. Our aim this morning is to make you feel validated. You're not alone. It is a real problem. And also, I would really love to open up a wider discussion on this because I think it's a massive problem, particularly as with regards to childcare in the holidays and after school and before school. there is such a lot of pressure on parents to return to work. And I've not met a parent who doesn't want to work. Everybody seems to want to work. They want to be independent. They don't want to have to rely on the state, but it does feel impossible. And there seems to be lots of pressure on people to return to work with no particular plan on how that's going to look. So, ladies, you're joining me this morning because, like me, you're a send parent. And to just sort of explain my qualifications, if you like, as a send parent, I've got like 500 kids now. Feels like 500. No, I've got 4 children. Feels like 500. And their profiles span from PDA, ADHD, autism, developmental language disorder, sensory processing, and all the associated difficulties that come with those presentations. And of course, the siblings, because actually managing siblings can be really, really tricky. And trying to balance all those needs is tricky. Balancing a job whilst you're trying to balance all those needs and the admin that comes with them is really, really tricky. So, Jess, do you want to tell us about your send parent scenario?
Yeah, so I've got my oldest, he's neurotypical, and then I've got my youngest, and she has Down syndrome, but she has a lot of other stuff going on as well, undiagnosed. There's communication difficulties and language barriers and things. And you see, when you say like balancing their needs, I really get that, because I have one who is very independent and he will go off, and I know that I can sort of leave him in a room. He's 9, so he's not really young. I can leave him in a room to play and sort of get on with what he wants to do. Whereas the other one, she's the other way, and she needs constant supervision all the time, constant reassurance. She needs to know that somebody's there. And I think that is one of the things that makes the childcare issues really hard, because she as you know, she likes what she knows, she likes who she knows. I can't just hire a babysitter and leave her with them. Like, it wouldn't work. She would need to meet them beforehand multiple times to build that sort of relationship with them, very much like when we've come to you, Chrissa, and your parties and gatherings. The first time you came, she wouldn't even come in the door. She knew you, she knew people who were there, but it was very overwhelming for her. But then we managed it, didn't we, this year? And because we did the visits, we came to what 3 times, I think, in that week we came to you, didn't we? And I think things like that, people don't essentially think about things like that. They think they just get a babysitter. It's not that easy.
Well, yeah, and I think, when you're thinking about your oldest, putting him with, not that we would ever want babysitters that we don't know, but you wouldn't have the difficulty in putting him in like an out of school club, because he's just going to crack on. But I think, and I think, when we did all that prep work, and again, I don't think you get that kind of prep work with non-send families. It takes a fellow family to understand, oh, we're going to need some preparation here in order for her to enjoy. We did an Easter party, didn't we, with an Easter egg hunt and stuff. And in order for her to enjoy the party, we knew that we would need to help her to be prepared. So understanding her surroundings, understanding who she felt safe with, because she feels safe with my girls. And my girls love being bossed around by her, don't they? Particularly around me.
Everybody loves being bossed around by her. I don't know how, but they do.
I love it. But again, it was also, and I did promise I wouldn't make you cry, and you might teeter a little bit on the edge of it now. So sorry, Jess, but it is my skill set to make people cry. Yeah. But also I think it comes down to you, because when you think about it, there aren't many people that she does feel comfortable and safe with. So then it's for you to release a little bit and go, oh, okay. Because remember, we'd sit there having a coffee and you'd be like, oh, is she shouting? And I'm like, leave it. It's okay. The girls have got her. And you're like, oh, jumping a little bit.
That natural instinct, isn't it? Is she okay? What's she doing?
Totally. And also knowing that it's okay. And in a lot of places, people wouldn't know what to do. But again, going from a send family home to a send family home,
Yeah.
we get it. So there's no judgment, and the kids are more empathetic. So looking at plus sides of having a send family, whilst it can be really tricky, it does mean that, you know, your eldest was also understood, because he was a bit like, okay, like, can I have some time off here? Like, is it all right for me to play and then
Yeah.
not have to worry about her? And
Yeah.
it's like, yeah,
Yeah.
because guess what? She's a novelty to the other kids right now. So let them do happy birthday. She loves singing happy birthday, doesn't she?
Yeah, she does. Yes.
She likes to light a candle and sing happy birthday, and everybody has to have a happy birthday. So there is that sort of managing needs. So what about you, Kat? Tell us about your experience.
Oh gosh, where do I start? 5 children, so I do have a small army.
You've got more hundreds of children than me.
More hundreds of children than you. I've got eldest is now moved out in their own home, very late diagnosed ADHD. It was when they went to university that they just really struggled because they weren't in that safe space that we'd unknowingly created for them at school. So off doing their own thing, only picks up the phone when they need something, which is great. That's what you want for them. Happy, healthy, thriving. And then I've got a 17-year-old, a nearly 14-year-old, a 4-year-old, and a 3-year-old. And we've got so many different profiles throughout that. I can't list them all off. But the middle one is hearing impaired, which is really difficult. His communication needs are tough. And if he's very tired, it's difficult for other people to understand what he is saying. And he will not use Makaton or BSL. He's got no interest in that, never has. So it's really hard for us to have a babysitter who doesn't know him very, very well, because otherwise there can be miscommunication and then he'll almost go into meltdown because he's frustrated. And teenage boy, frustration is part of the course. But it's so hard. He's the one we worry about, and we tend to have to use the divide and conquer technique with our children. It's not ever just finding that one person, that one after school club, that one, even though they've been pretty much to the same school, that one after school club, that one babysitter. It has to be multiple to make sure all of the needs within the family are met.
I remember doing that, you know. My husband and I, we went for just one night away for our anniversary, and we had to have the kids all at different places. And then because the eldest would really, really struggle, so my eldest has got PDA, and 24 hours in one place was just enough, unless it was home, you know? So then I had to move her from one sort of babysitter, which was a close family friend, to another one. And we're going back now about, I don't know, 10 years ago or something. I had to move it from one midway through, and it was all planned, to another. And the absolute the whole sort of drama of it all was just not worth it. You know, we just said after that point, that's the last time we're going to do that for a while. It's just, it was so stressful, you know, sort of messaging in with people, has she arrived okay? Is she okay? Okay, if this happens and do that. Oh, forget it. I'd just rather stick a film on and get it takeaway, you know? And it is that divide and conquer thing can really, really help. Even with holidays, I mean, we're going to be doing more towards sort of holidays and holidaying with Send families towards the summer. But we've even done that in the past, where we've divided and conquered that way, where we've gone, okay, these kids will enjoy this and I'll take them to do this, and you take those ones to do that, and we can do that bit together.
We did
It's
that
hard work.
last year. We
Yes.
didn't go on holiday, so my husband took our eldest and my stepdaughter, and me and my youngest, we stayed at home because we knew that she wouldn't cope with a caravan holiday. And it's mainly because you can't guarantee the weather, so you can't always guarantee what we can do. And it would just ended up being me and her sort of just stuck in a caravan. So we sort of did a week of activities. I took her swimming, and then they went to Cornwall and had a week away. So we do that with days out as well. If we want to take the others out, we know that we can't pick somewhere that's really busy or it's going to be too overwhelming. So I'll stay with my youngest, or we'll go and do something different, and then my husband will take the other two out. It's we do that as well. So I sort of understand the divide and conquer, and it works because then the others aren't missing out as such on things. But then you're not overwhelming and stressing out the other one. So
But
yeah.
it's expensive then, though, isn't it? Because then you've got to go in 2 cars.
Yeah.
And sometimes you don't get the discounts because you're having to book things separately because you don't know whether that one's gonna, we might have to do that one on the day, but then, so there are downsides to that. But I think so. Let's talk about then childcare for the holiday. So we've got a massive holiday coming up, right? And yes, okay, we can bang on as much as we like, although I don't think it's very helpful for anybody, about how lucky we are that we can work from wherever at Sunshine. So I tend to work with my kids around and I do certain hours during the summer. Jess, you have some days in the office, some days at home, depending on your husband's shifts. Kat, you're very similar in the fact that you'll come in for some days and do some days at home. And when you do the days at home, there might not be the typical 9 to 5. It could be, all right, I'm going to get up before the kids and do a 7 till 9 or 7 till 10. And then once they're in bed, I'll finish off my hours. So we're quite lucky. And I think I've done a reel this morning actually on my Instagram. So if anybody's on Instagram, do check me out. I'm under Sunshine Chrissa, where I've said that I think a lot of employers are missing that amazing skill set that a lot of SEND parents have, because they're saying you have to be at your desk 9 to 5, where you get the best work from people when they work around their families, because families come first. But in terms of the holidays, Kat, let's start with you. Why do you think it's so difficult for SEND families to find appropriate childcare during the holidays? I mean, is it mainly due to the lack of trained staff, or is there something else you think that might make it really hard?
It's lack of suitable provision, and it's also lack of people knowing about that provision. So before my time at Sunshine, I used to run half clubs, and they can be great, but they are run by individual organisations, and sometimes they don't get across what their provision is all about very well in the one paragraph that they get to list it under, and they do only get one paragraph. It's not a lot at all. So for someone who is trying the provision, and they aren't set up beforehand, so you can't go and do pre-visits, there's no transition from school into half. It is literally you start on that first day and the child is with you. So there's just no sort of, let's go and take this child and see if this one's suitable. So I know for me, if I didn't know how it worked, I wouldn't take my children to that. I would struggle along however I could within my tribe, because I wouldn't know what I was taking them into, if that makes sense. So I ran one that was very sort of SEND based. We had quiet spaces. We also had those things for the sensory seekers. All of the staff that I had were very highly trained. But again, getting that across in one paragraph was really difficult, and not being able to have the children visit. So what we would usually have to do is have them come the year before, come and see the session before, to come and see if they would like it. But then it's such a long gap, and there's no continuity for it, and I think that's a huge problem. There's no
And,
options.
yeah, no, absolutely. And what I was going to say was as well, half is for a very specific cohort, isn't it? So
Yeah.
is it low income families
Have to
and
be to free school meals. That was our basis. But
okay.
we could take children who were registered as SEND without an EHCP if they were in the process of, but they then had to have a diagnosis. And it didn't matter what sort of income the family was from them, we could still take them. But again, that is not communicated very well. And they
No.
are changing that at the moment. It's one of the reasons why there aren't so many running at the moment.
And it's for a short part of the day as well, isn't it?
Yep, so 4 hours a day, 4 days a week for 4 weeks in the summer holidays, and for 1 week of any longer half terms. So it's not enough.
It really isn't enough. And I think whilst it's a fantastic initiative, and I've seen some really brilliant ones. And like you said, you ran a half club, and I know that Bridge the Gap in Derby, have run a half club. I don't think there's enough funding for these organisations to be able to fulfill exactly what's needed. But also, if it was me, I would like to, if my children are in childcare, so I don't have to juggle things. I would love to think that I can get my full day of work done so that when they're home, I can be completely connected to them and not have to do any bits and bobs. But 4 hours by the time you leave dropping them off, you're talking half an hour to get to work, half an hour the other side. You're only actually going to get about 2.5, 3 hours worth of work done anyway.
Yeah.
I found a fantastic out of school club a couple of years ago that I put my girls into. Probably had a bit of an ADHD moment because I got dead excited because they asked to see one of my kids' EHCPs. They wanted to do some transition days. They wanted to do, oh my God, it was great. And they wanted to really work on, whilst they couldn't meet the needs specifically in the EHCP because she has things like direct speech and language. And I wouldn't have expected that. And it's not funded during the holidays. And that's part of the problem as well. But they wanted to see what her profile was, to see if they could meet her needs. And they met with her and we talked about any problems or what concerns that she might have. Anyway, it was a really fabulous bedding in process and they did really, really well there. However, it's £50 a day. Now, no disrespect to the actual provision, by the way, because it's worth it. But, I had 3 of my kids in there. That's £150 a day, 5 days a week. You're talking, that's your holiday fund gone and some for the entire holiday. So it seems a bit bonkers. Have you even tried it, Jess? Have you tried getting sent to childcare over the holidays?
No, because I'd like to keep it familiar, they do one at the school, at the kids' school, because Bella, she's still in mainstream at the minute, so and they do offer an after school club. They do it during the holidays, but again, I think it's like 4 days. But again, the price, I think it's like £22 per child. But also,
Yeah.
I would, I have never inquired about it anyway, but I wouldn't be confident that they would have the staff to be able to
Yeah.
support her anyway. Because I'll give you an example, toileting. She still needs a lot of support going to the toilet with everything. And I don't feel confident that leaving her or letting her go somewhere like that would support her with things like that. Does that make sense? And I mean,
100%.
I could have a conversation with them and they may well say, yes, we can do this. But then I don't know if I would trust that they would do
Mhm.
that. Do you know what I mean? It's so hard.
100%.
And I think I'd rather keep her with me because I know that she's safe. I know that she's supported. I know that her needs are being met most of the time.
Yeah.
The
No,
mental load
absolutely.
as well. It's the mental load of having them in there, and you're still mentally like, I wonder if they've done this, I wonder if they've done that, I wonder if, and it's almost that mum guilt as well, because you're putting them in somewhere and you're worrying whilst also trying to do your job. It is a lot.
Oh my God, so much. Do you know, there's a big, I think it's sort of England wide, a provision of out of school club, holiday club, really big company. I've seen them advertise for staff, and they advertise for staff as being teenagers. They want teenagers to come and run the provisions for them. So the teenagers are, looking after children, which I'm not particularly comfortable with, particularly if you've got kids with SEND. And we could go on about how tricky that will be, but we understand, even with the profiles that we've discussed today with our kids, that would be really tricky. But it was quite a few years ago, and they were running a sort of sports-based club. And I was thinking, oh, that sounds amazing. I'll put all 3 of my kids in. And one of my girls, who's got additional needs and an EHCP, although she didn't have the plan at the time, it was sort of just probably like reception time, and I sent them all there, and I sent them with the direction that she may, if she feels very stressed out, she may have an accident toileting. Um, and they said, no, 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 we've got that all covered. And I said, here's a bag. She can do an element for herself, but she may need some support. I mean, she is only 4 or 5 or whatever, probably 5. And what they did was there was like a 16 or 17-year-old teenager who spotted what she did and then went, ah, at what she did, and then shouted, you, to my older child, you're her sister, right? Come and sort her out. Come and sort her out. She's gone and done this, lot. And so my elder daughter, who would have been, so if she was 5, she would have been like 7 or 8. She had to come and then be the carer. Now, of course, again, being in a Send family, we all muck in, so she knew what to do. But that shouldn't have been her job. So I complained, got a massive apology back, got all my money back because I'd booked for like a week or whatever. And I continue to warn parents locally about that particular provision because I think it's absolutely appalling. And they continue to advertise for teenagers as the carers or essentially, they are carers. They're looking after children during the holidays. So yeah, that really worried me because they're making a lot of money out of this sort of provision. And if you've got kids who are able and they speak up for themselves and they can, self-advocate really well, then great. But if you've got a child who has difficulties, I mean,
Yeah.
none of us could send our kids there. That's
No.
just awful.
I mean, my oldest has done a couple of them, after school sports clubs, and he's loved them. He's fine, but
Yeah.
he's able, he can speak,
Yeah.
he would be able to come to me and say if there's a problem or if there was something he wasn't comfortable with, he would be able to communicate that with me.
Yeah.
My youngest wouldn't, and I think that's what it is as well, that element of trust. Yeah, we have to be able to trust
Absolutely.
people. They're our babies, they're everything. And if we can't trust them, like Kat said, we're just going to be sat there worrying, not being able to concentrate on anything else.
You
So
can't get your work done.
yeah.
You'd rather juggle at home and
Yeah.
know that they're safe,
Yeah, which is what we do, which is what I
Yeah.
think we do during the school holidays. I mean, and like you said, we are so lucky to work where we work because I can sit and do my work. The children will keep themselves entertained. I mean, my youngest will be with me, but she'll do her own thing until she hears Teams ringing. And then I think I sit on a call with somebody and I'm like, I bet you think I can't, how does she get any work done? And I'm like, I promise you, she's only like this when there's another person because she wants to be the center of attention, as you will both know. You've seen her
Yes.
in action.
Yes.
But then I'd rather it be like that because never does anybody not speak to her when she comes on and she's like, hi Chrissa, hi Kat, Tom, she's shouting for everybody and nobody is ever, oh, I don't think Jess is doing
Oh no.
work. It's my little assistants with me and
Yeah. But
so yeah,
but also, it's a good thing to model, I think. Whilst it's tricky sometimes to juggle, I think it is quite good to show that, it is possible, particularly as we are the change maker generation, in the fact that, we've moved away from this sort of generation where the mothers stay at home. We're now doing things differently, and I think it's really good to model this stuff. So, if I went down that route now, I could go on to a complete sort of like feminism, patriarchy. We'll leave that for another
that's
time.
true because my husband has 2 days off and they're always during the week. I escape to work during the school holidays. I'm like,
Yeah.
you've got your dad today. I'm off. See you later. I'm going for a break.
It's easier at work. It is easier at work. So what could we do then to make childcare during the holidays that little bit easier for Send families? Is there something that would make a difference, do you think?
I think it's just all about finding your tribe. I think if you can't find a provision that works for you and one that you really, really trust, then you need a tribe of other people who really get it. I'm really fortunate. Just down the road from me is my youngest two's godmother, and the whole family is just absolutely incredible. As you know, we've had some really difficult times this year where we've needed emergency childcare at the drop of a hat, and they have been there through thick and thin. I can just call them. There is that moment where I'm like, oh, but they've had them X amount this week and I don't want to bother them again with it. They need a break from my kids as much as I need a break from my kids. So I definitely think that's a huge important part, but it is lonely being a Send parent. So it is hard to find that connection. It's difficult all round. But if there was more provisions that you could balance that alongside having your tribe, I think that would all it would just give us a lot more peace of mind, I think, knowing there was options.
Yeah, and it's tricky, isn't it? Because when we look at let's take one of our kids. I'll take one of mine actually, EHCPs, right? In my child's EHCP, it says she has a full-time one-to-one in structured and unstructured learning. So that's playtimes and in the classroom. And the transition in and the transition out of everything that she does, whether that's into school, into the classroom, whatever. So, a full-time one-to-one. And she also gets a lot of speech and language provision. So direct speech and language therapy once a week, and then direct speech and language therapy through a group. I think it's, let's say, twice a week. I think it's twice a week in there. Now, tally that up. That's a lot of money. So actually, if we were to go and pay for that provision ourselves, well, it would be absolutely unmanageable. So, what would be ideal, Jess? Like, do you think there is an ideal? If you could literally say, right, this is what I'd love, like I would like to wave my magic wand, and this is what I would love the ideal setup to be for my child, what would it be? Like, how
So
would it work?
for me, it would be a provision somewhere just for children with Down syndrome, small numbers, somebody who's very experienced in working with children with Down syndrome, maybe a couple of them, like a little forestry outdoor. Because if you're thinking of the summer, where they can enjoy themselves, but also being able to have that transition period beforehand. Because like ideally, if I was going to send her somewhere for the summer holidays for a couple of days, I'd be starting that transition now. I'd be taking her to visit
Oh yeah.
now weekly, because that will help her. She would have met the person already, ideally somebody that she would already know, just to make that a bit easier. But yeah, I mean, because we talk about this quite a lot, Chrissa, that there's a lot of schools out there for children with SEND, but there's no schools out there for children with Down syndrome. There's not one. And I know that it's because the demand's not there, but then what about those children? Like, all I want is for Bella to have friends with other children that are like her. And you don't get that a lot. It's hard, isn't it? So that would be ideal for me. A little forestry school centre somewhere that does just for children with Down syndrome, so she can be around children like her.
Yes.
And
I mean,
yeah,
and I think that, it brings up a wider issue here as well. And I've said this before, that we're now seeing, autism friendly this and that, right? So autism inclusion, autism friendly sessions here, there, and everywhere, autism friendly shopping. Makes me want to vomit because they've seen a keyword, these people. They've seen something, they're like, we sound inclusive. Let's tick a box. And we're bringing in this autistic community. Excellent. We tick a box. We'll make money from that and it'll make us look good. Number one, it's always very limited in terms of what's being provided. It's always the sloppy seconds. If you go to an autism friendly cinema screening or shopping experience, then it's the times when they're quiet anyway, so they just want more people in the door,
it's
right?
the times when my child would be settling down, getting ready for bed. She'd be having that wind down time. Yeah, I know what you mean,
Yes.
100%.
And why just autism? Because actually, I know I'm always banging my DLD drum, developmental language disorder, but DLD affects way more kids than autism does. So, and I'm not saying that we should have like a send off, right? I'm not saying this versus that. What I'm saying is inclusion isn't just about one set of people. Inclusion is about inclusion. Everybody's included, everybody's being considered, and it's more than feeling welcome. And I think that, like you said, there are no Down syndrome specific provisions. There's no DLD specific provisions. There are no ADHD specific provisions. We have autism specific provisions, speech and language, yes, but again, and that's the issue with school. So we're definitely going to find that outside of school. But there's so much that we're still missing when it comes to sort of holiday care, isn't there, Kat? Is there anything that you wish, Kat, that that you wish existed in terms of childcare?
I really, really wish that there was somewhere for the whole family, regardless of age range. So, like I said, 17 all the way down to 3 within my household. Eldest doesn't count, moved out. So it's 17 all the way down to 3. And I really wish there was somewhere that they could all go to the same space, but be separated. Because
Yeah.
I know for definite that my eldest really, really looks after their younger siblings. My youngest does have a lot of difficulties. He's on the autistic pathway. He struggles with transitions. He struggles with if someone tells him the wrong fact about space, it's an hour-long lecture on why that is wrong at 3. So I wish there was somewhere where to take the mental load off me, I could drop them all off there together,
Yeah.
but that they have very separate activities, and the older ones, very much like what you said, Chrissa, the older ones aren't expected to then look after and be the carers for the younger ones. And I feel like that for me would solve a lot of issues because they're all in the same space. I've only had to do one drop off, one pick up. It should be longer than 4 hours because that is not enough time. And that they're all getting their individual needs met without having to worry about where their siblings are.
Yeah, and I think that this sort of cut-off that seems to happen at age 12, because they just assume that any child then who's in senior school could just be left at home on their own. I don't want them to be. I don't want them. So, the fact that you just included there the older ones, I think is really, really important. And like you said, it keeps their brains ticking, but also takes them away from having to be the carers. So I think it's really, really important that it's wide. The age range is wide. And by all means, for those who are watching, please do continue to share your real experiences because I'm going to come to the comments in a sec. So Jess, you've mentioned that you've not even bothered pursuing this now as a thing in terms of holiday childcare, and that you just muddle on through. You can just work from home, and that's the way she's going to be best cared for, or both of them are going to be best cared for. But what about babysitting then? Let's move on to babysitting because this is different because I think so many of us, babysitting's changed over the years. I remember I've never been hired as a babysitter, I don't think, as a kid, but I remember helping friends who'd been a babysitter, and it was just a case of I'm going out for a couple of drinks. My kids have gone to bed, so watch whatever you want on the TV, and there's money for a Domino's pizza or whatever. And it was great because you could just sit there and watch whatever was on the TV with your friend, and you weren't being naughty or anything, but the kids were never a bother. It's different now. We're very aware of safety, even with kids who haven't got sent. But Jess, what do you do for babysitting?
Well, it's that support network, isn't it? It's who have you got, like your tribe, Kat, like you mentioned. If if we ever go out on a date night, I would ask my mum, because my mum is a safe person for both of my children. It doesn't always work, because it's different. So when my youngest sees my mum, it's never when like she's settling down for bed. It's never in that sort of way. It's always when we're out or we've gone to visit my mum or it's in a different way. And I'm always there. So, or my husband, my husband, say he is the best babysitter. He's not a babysitter, he's a parent, but I can go out of an evening when I know he's at home and both of the children are fine because he's their dad and they're safe with him and they know that they're safe with him and it's routine and it's normal. But if you put a different person in, it's hard. We trialed a night back in November, and she really struggled to settle, and there was lots of anxious poos on the toilet, and it was because neither of her safe people were there, even though my mum is a safe person, but she shouldn't be there at night time when we're not there. So it's still so hard. And because my husband's work shifts are awful, he's a chef, so he gets, like I said, 2 days off a week and they're weekdays. We don't go out a lot anyway, so we don't really have that chance to put it into place by doing it regularly because it's just really hard for us. So yeah, babysitting is difficult. It may well be different babysitting in the day, because it's daytime, and if I was to take the children maybe to my mum or a park, and then I come away for a bit. That might be different, but we haven't tried anything like that, so I can't say. But because it's a daytime thing, it might be different. It's the nighttime, I think, is because she's so used to that routine.
Yeah.
We do the story, and then she settles with her iPad for a bit, and then yeah, when it's different, she really struggles. And I don't think it matters who the other people are. If it's not me or her dad, then I think that it's just unsettling for her, because you're not supposed to be here. Where's my mum? Where's dad? Like, do you know what I mean? It's
And
hard.
again, the preparation, like, you know, it would be easy to say, okay, well, why don't you regularly have your mum over in the week to do one nighttime, you know, so that he doesn't feel, but that's a lot to ask. So that then becomes such a massive drama because you're dragging your mum away from what she does one night a week, which I'm sure she would do, you know, but
Yeah.
it's like, for what? One date night a year, you know,
Yeah.
it's
I mean, we do lunch dates now when the children are at school, just because it's easier. We don't have to worry. They're at school, they're happy, they're safe, they're looked after. There's no anxiety, no stress. And then we can actually enjoy each other's company. So yeah, that's how we sort of get around that.
And I think that's really important, though, because I think so many parents get caught up in the everyday, and we're all guilty of it. And I've said many a time to my husband, we have to book these times in advance, otherwise they just don't happen.
Yeah.
You have to get them booked into your diary, and we do the same where we do daytimes, because it's just not worth the faff. And I've got a really good friend. I don't like to put on her all the time. And I've spoken about her before, where she's not a parent, but she just says to me, tell me what you need and I'll do whatever I can. You know, if I can do it, I will do it. But you don't want to put on her all the time. But she's really firm with my kids, and they don't, and I'm not saying strict. She's a teacher, so she gets that kids mug you off. And my kids will say, oh, my mum normally says that I can have a sleepover even though it's midweek. And she's like, no, don't mug me off. No, that's not happening. You're not having a sleepover. I know what you're like. So I know she doesn't let them get away with stuff, which is brilliant. And I think that consistency is really good. And she is more of a sister to me than a friend. And then I've got this fantastic, lovely friend who I've met actually through the work that we do here. And she's an ex-special educational needs teacher. And occasionally, when her time allows, although I don't like to put on her either, I will say to her, would you come and help me at home? You know, with babysitting and stuff. But again, you feel like you're putting people out. My kids don't necessarily need the prep. They're a bit older. I mean, come September, they'll all be in senior school and above. You know, my eldest will be going up 23 this year, so I've been doing it a while. But I think the more you have as well, like, I remember when my kids were little, nobody wants 4 kids. You know, you can't go out, like you said, Kat, it's all about divide and conquer.
Yeah.
But you know, Kat, you've mentioned that you've got a friend down the road that is brilliant, because of course you have needed it this year because you've had other stuff going on. There was a real surprise in the family. This is not stuff that you want to continue, and it's not stuff that's happened in the past, but it was thrown at you at speed. So
Yes,
you
very
did
much
need
so.
that.
Yeah, so my 17-year-old diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma stage 4, and it wasn't your usual diagnosis process. So usually you go to the doctors, they send you for some investigation through referral. They did that, but that was knocked back. So we had to take her in for an X-ray. And during that X-ray, they discovered that the tumor was from her collarbone down to her sternum. It was in her lungs, it was in her stomach, so it was quite advanced. And from that moment, well, you'll know, Chrissa, because I rang you panicking about Cuppa and Chat, because I love my Cuppa and Chat group. That Emma runs it fantastically, and I always pop in, and I love them. They're so fantastic. I was like, I'm not going to be able to be there. Can you let anyone know? I'm sorry. And I had to find childcare then there for not just one day, it was for a week. She was in hospital for a week whilst they stabilized her heart, because it was right round her heart, and popped in a port and did everything that they needed to do. So we did divide and conquer then, but it was difficult because as we were sort of, I was there, then my husband would stay a night, and we'd switch it constantly. But there was that time in between where one of us was traveling to the hospital and one of us was traveling home, where we needed desperately someone to be
Yes.
with the little ones, because they were worried. It was very out of routine. It was scary. It was absolutely terrifying. And we did have a great support network, but it's that feeling of, like you say, you are putting on people. I
Yeah.
felt so bad that yes, everyone's struggling with this, but I need the help, and I struggle to ask for help anyway.
Yeah.
It was really, really difficult. And in that situation, there is no service, there is no provision, there
No.
is nowhere you can call to be like, this has happened within the family, we need some help.
And you know, I'm going to play devil's advocate here because I have, you know, I have ADHD, which means I'm constantly thinking of new business ideas, as you know. And one of the things I've often toyed with is, should we should we create a send specific provision? And I've talked about it amongst the staff, saying, should we start it with the staff children? But you know what? Knowing how the world is and how I know I'm highly strung as a send parent and I want things spot on and I will hold people accountable, it seems kind of terrifying to be able to create that provision. So I totally get it
Oh,
that these provisions don't exist. Is
absolutely. Yeah, I
s-
completely get that. I think the amount of paperwork and daily checks that would you need to do on everything, right down from the room to your staff members, to make sure that everything was safe and comfortable and everyone's needs were being met, staff and children. Oh my gosh, no, it would be. I just saw a comment come up earlier saying it should be run by send mums, and I
I
think
know.
great, because I think that we do know and we do get it. But oh my gosh, that would be terrifying.
I don't think I could do it.
No, but I
And
also think mentally, when you've got send children, me personally, I don't think I could go and work with send children
no,
because
I need
I've
a
got one and
yeah.
she's hard work. And I think for me coming to work, I'm a different person. I'm not a mom, I'm not a carer. I come to work, I do my job, and for the few hours I'm here, I'm I'm not that mom who's mentally
Yeah.
drained from looking after the this it's that the daily struggles of having a send child that people don't
Yeah.
realize because they don't have it. And yeah, it's really hard. So for me personally, I don't think I could do that, just because of the mental load of having my own, to go and do it all day and then have to come back home to my own. That would just be like, I'd need to sleep for a week afterwards.
Yes. Yes, and I think, yeah, I just think it's really, really tricky. I don't know whether there's a one size fits all approach to this. And I think that historically we've had families there to help. I don't think families are as forthcoming for a number of reasons now. I think people are having to work longer. You know, back in the day, it would be that grandparents were readily available because they were retired. You can't do that now. You know, cost of living crisis and all that. People are having to work longer. Um, and I think people move away from their family home more, you know. So, you know, where all my family are, my wider family, not that I think anybody would particularly help anyway. Talked about that before. But the majority of my family are, you know, 3 hours away in South Wales because we've moved away from that. Again, with my husband, his family are spread all around the country. So, no, you know, it used to be that your family would sort of grow and settle and grow in one geographical area, but I think that's all changed. I think there's so much now. So I'm going to go to some of the comments. Jess says, I used to nanny, including babysitting, for a child with autism. It took a solid 2 years for him to build a rapport with me. It's important the trust is built on connection, which of course takes time. And this is the thing, you know, it's only with those sorts of solid connections can we have these moments where we can say, you know, I've got an emergency. Am I okay to drop my child off with you? Do you have availability? I know that I used to back in the day use some of the nursery workers that have built that rapport with my kids. It's almost a little bit easier at that age, isn't it? Um, let's have a look. So somebody else has said, I have run provisions for send in the holidays off a farm setting. I mean, this sounds amazing. It needs to be highly staffed and therefore it's expensive. And this is what I was saying. Quiet spaces, different activities, but training is hugely important. Listen to the parents. Parents do a session also to train the staff. I mean, this is also brilliant. It's that finding the time to be able to do all of that. And again, the parents will then hold these staff accountable. It's quite a terrifying place to be because, you know, I totally understand how teachers find it very, very stressful when they're expected to do so much with a class of 30 and they're just one person. And they're held to such high regard and to high standards when there is no funding available to help them in the classroom. There's no funding to be able to get training put in place. And there's a huge divide. Somebody else has said, my child has so much school trauma, she doesn't trust any adult and no one wants to help her or me get her trust back. And this is another thing. It's like, how will the provision look? Because if you've got a school, somebody with school trauma, the last thing you want is for that provision to look anything like a school or feel like a school. So then this is what I'm saying. There's no one size fits all. I'm just going through some more comments. So we've got some coming in from YouTube. So Gabby, our lovely Gabby, says her local half sessions in Sunderland are really helpful. Science buddies in Sunderland are excellent and they run send half sessions. Kat, what does half stand for?
Half term and food provision, I think.
Or holiday and food provision?
And that's the one. Yeah, they've changed it
So,
twice.
well, it never helps with all these.
The funding for that is running out. It's not been renewed. What is running at the moment is done via individual councils. So as much as people have come to rely on it, the government are going to take that away. It's expensive. It's very expensive to do. And when it first started, it was 5 days and you could run for as many hours as you wanted. So you could do 6-hour days. Then they cut it down to 4 days, as many hours as you wanted. Now it's 4. And yeah, it's really frustrating because those that have built up those bonds with those children, who are now the trusted childcare provider for so many thousands of families, they're not going to be funded anymore.
It's so bad. And I wonder if you can tag your MPs in this and see what they've got to say. I know that people are constantly tagging MPs and local councillors, and some really run with this, but others just ignore. But I wonder if people can tag their MPs and local councillors, see if there is something that can be organised with, I don't know what kind of funding, but there's got to be funding out there. Somebody else said, what if you have older parents? That's not always a reasonable ask. Also, we've had issues with the fallout after, which meant the night out just wasn't worth it. And that's very much what we were saying earlier, you know, where you could do all this prep for weeks and weeks and weeks before. For what? 2 hours out of the house? Sometimes you're just like, oh,
checking your phone just in case.
Yeah.
this is it. This is it. And we've spoken about this before, Jess, you know, where it's really, really hard to be able to switch off, because I know that's something you really struggle with. And I know that our Christmas do. You know, I'm gonna say it, Jess. Jess was very sensible. She sat there and it didn't look to me like she was having any fun. She was trying to convince me she was having fun, but she wasn't. Her brain was somewhere else. And I remember, Jess, you saying, okay, I've done like 3 hours now. I'm going to go. Is that all right if I just go? Like, I've ticked a box. I've showed my face. I need to be gone. My head's not here. And that's with your husband at home, you know? And I think people don't realize that it is hard to detach. And I think there needs to be counseling for that, because I think we become everything to our kids, particularly when they've got disabilities that are very evident from birth, which, you know, Jess, we've always spoken about the fact that you got Bella's diagnosis before I got any of my kids' diagnosis.
Yeah.
So you had to come to terms with it in a very different way.
Yeah.
And so your sort of immediate I don't know how to say this without actually sounding rude, and I don't mean to be rude, but the sort of over-parenting that we do as a send parent was immediate for that, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah, I think that it's because obviously I was 12 weeks pregnant when I found out that there was a very high, they called it high risk then. I think it's high chance now of Down syndrome.
Ah,
So
good.
we sort of had all of that time to prepare, but I didn't want to, because I just thought if she's going to be what will be will be. She's going to be who she is. No amount of researching and reading can change that.
Yeah.
All children are different anyway, regardless of abilities, disabilities. So it was very much we just sort of ran with it. And then when she came, and she was very she was typical for, I'd say, like the first 8 months. She was just a typical baby. And then it was about 8 months old we started to see those delays and those struggles, like physically.
Yeah.
And then I think maybe it was from then. It was sort of maybe the overparenting is more being overcautious. I think a lot of it for me is the communication, but because unless you know her, you can't always understand what she's saying, and she can also say things, as you know, that aren't 100% correct or factual, or maybe they are to her.
Yeah.
So I think I'll never sort of know if something has happened to her when I've not been with her. I'm never going to know that. How would I know
Absolutely.
that unless it's reported by an adult? And I think that's what a lot of that worry and anxiety comes down to, because it's that, again, it's that trust. I won't leave her with anyone who I don't
Yes.
trust. I can't. It's, yeah.
And that highlights again, this need for the training, because we know that she is, for instance, and two of my kids have got this as well, a gestalt language processor, which means it can repeat stock phrases, not really understanding what the words are. And quite often it could be a stock phrase they've heard off the TV, or it could be a stock phrase that had the desired effect, but they don't understand why. And so, yeah, she does. And likewise, my kids. I've got two that come up with stock phrases, and you're like, what? Why are you saying that now?
Where did
And
it come from? Where have you heard
yeah,
that? Yeah, yeah.
exactly. But if she came up with a stock phrase that she's heard from somebody you've never met before because you've left her at the childcare there, you don't know, is this an actual thing? Or is this just a stock phrase? And in which case, where she heard it, there's too many questions and
Yeah.
she can't answer them.
Yes.
So it's a safeguarding issue. So I'll just do a few more comments. Jane says there's nothing for older children who still need one-to-one care. So we spoke about older children, being siblings and needing that relief. But of course, there's loads of kids out there that still need one-to-one care. Um, and someone else has said about one. Oh, Ashbourne Playaway do day trips for children with SEND. There's also Mega Stars, which is open to anyone, but are really amazing with my little one. Again, I don't know any of these places, so this is really, really good that we've got some of these comments. But please do continue to share in the comments any ideas that have worked well, any particular gaps that you're spotting, any experiences you've got, and in terms of sort of more straightforward support, I personally think as an employer, I'm talking to employers now, please just be more flexible. And like I said in my reel this morning, there will be some jobs like, working on a checkout or chefing where you can't do that at home. I understand that's a bums on seat sort of job, but there are more jobs out there that don't require you to be in a specific place. And so actually, employers need to understand the family should come first. And what could employers do to make this easier for their staff, to retain the skill set, to retain the talent? Because I think they'll probably find that if you treat your staff like adults, because they are, and you give them respect, that is a two-way process. And so they will really value that opportunity to be able to work around their families. So we might not be able to fix it from all angles, but if everybody stepped up just to do their little sort of couple of percent, to help send families, it would really, really alleviate the pressures. And last week or the week before, should I say, we did a Facebook Live, Gabby and I, all about the little things that help send families. And I think, go back and have a watch of that. You'll find it on our YouTube channel. For those who are watching, this will be available on our YouTube channel. So if you, if you've got this far, you've watched all the way through, but if you want to watch again, it's available on our YouTube channel. But ladies, I think that we have certainly put the world to rights. We've highlighted the issues. We've highlighted the gaps. We've talked about the difficulties. We will not be alone in having these difficulties, even with, employment that wraps around our families. And I just hope that someone out there might see this and, come up with some solutions, even if it is just employers seeing it, making it a little bit easier for their staff. But
Both mums and dads, not just for mums, because I think it's kind of it's flexible for women to do childcare, but dads do it too. So flexible across both parents.
I'm so glad you mentioned that, because even though we're in this phase of change makery, I don't even think that's the word, but I've just made it a word. Even though we're in that phase of women, really, changing the dynamics of family life, what we are seeing is dads don't even bother asking because they know the answer is going to be no. So it all lands with the mum. The mum has to organise the childcare. The mum has to work out, right, Monday we're doing this, Tuesday we're doing that. Even if the dad is part of that plan, it's down to the mum to carry that load. The sort of weight on a mother is enormous. But a lot of the time, I think that men, well, that I think that men need to be louder. We're very loud because we've had to be. We've had to fight for our rights for a very long time, and we're still fighting for them now. And there's so many women who've come before us and broken those glass ceilings, which have made it sort of easier for us. But I think men don't even think about, oh, that's a question I need to ask. They don't think about, oh, I need to go into the workplace and ask for these reasonable adjustments. If you're a send parent, you have protected characteristics. Your employer has to consider reasonable adjustments. So men, if you're watching, yes, this is another story. To the men, be loud. Look at what your rights are. We've got some great webinars on employment rights on our Sunshine Academy. Just saying, check out the Sunshine Academy, because whether you're whoever you are as a parent, you will need to understand your rights as a parent, not just education, health and care. I'm talking about employment rights. We have employment rights. And I think it's really, really important that dads exercise their rights to that, because it's always put on the mother. So mothers then can't soar in their career because they know they can't be readily available, because they have to continue to carry that load at home. So good point, Kat. Dads as well. All the parents. I'll just quickly check to see if we've got any more comments that require answers. Let me see. Oh yeah, we're talking about the farm settings. My comments aren't loading, sorry, but I think we've more or less covered everything. But I hope that everybody's found it useful. We're going to get back to it now, another day of fighting the great fight. So if you need anything, for those who are watching, please do get in touch. I hope you found that useful. Continue to share your stories. If you need any help in finding anything, you need any links to our cuppa and chats where we're very, very supportive. It's free to attend. They're online and in person in 2 different venues in Wales and in England. Just drop us a line and we'll get you the links. But ladies, it's been an absolute joy. Thank you so much for joining me this morning. I think we've covered some really important topics, although not fixed anything necessarily, but I'm not sure that it's immediately fixable.
No, not quite yet. Hopefully
No.
soon.
It takes an ADHD, I'm waiting for the ADHD to come up with a business plan. That's what I'm waiting for.